Let's go, Big Pete. What are we saying? How we doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. You've come in with some energy that I don't get. I
Nah, mate, we
feel
always come with energy. That's how we have to do
like,
it. I wasn't just going to sit here and be like, "Hi, Pete. How are you today? How are you doing? How are you doing, though, mate? All good?
yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. How's things with you?
How's things with me, mate? I'll tell you what, not good, mate. I woke up in a great mood, a very positive mood, and then I reminded myself that I had to go to the garage because my car is in the bin. And then went to said garage for a diagnostic check, which for some reason in my head I was like, it's free. It's not free. Um,
No, they're normally like 20, 50 quid, aren't they?
yeah, yeah. 60 quid for mine. So thumbs up, class stuff. Got diagnostic check back. Guy basically said my timing chain is fucked, which is something I paid for 4 months ago to get fixed, which cost me £800. So that's what you love to hear. Class stuff. So I've now got to go back to the garage that fixed it and be like, listen, mate, I haven't fixed it. And hopefully they resolve that. Because if they don't, I'm going to be very, very upset because I'm currently training at a techno gym. Pretty good equipment, pretty fun. Great, resistant profiles and strength profiles, and fucking love it. Yeah. But apart from that, mate, I'm all good. What is new with you?
Hey, everything's new with me. Firstly, cheers, because I'm the first guest on this, aren't I?
Yeah, you are first
That's
guest,
big.
mate.
And
It's a
Cam
big,
didn't even
big
show
pleasure.
up.
Yeah, no, Cam's busy, mate. He basically said that he doesn't like people who take steroids, and he basically said that he doesn't want to be affiliated with anything like that, so he just didn't want to turn up today. So
Mate,
yeah,
I rate that. Fuck all these roid taking games,
yeah,
especially the ones that look
dirty cheat.
natty. Mate, these dirty cheats that look natty as well.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, it's crazy. Like
Yeah.
honestly, just injecting yourself and just lifting triple the weight of a normal person. It's just cheat. There's no hard work ethic or anything like that behind it. It's just
Mate,
injecting
you
your mass.
just
That's how it works.
you, in it. You're not even doing it for yourself as well. You're just doing it for like appraisal by other people.
Yeah,
So
that's so you
that's
can
like
get more
that's
budget.
mate, it's shit in it.
So it's stupid, mate. It's stupid. What is your prepping? Am I correct?
Yeah, I am. So I'm five, 5.5 weeks into prep now. I'm doing the first timer show at the end of September, so I think I'm like 20 weeks out. I think I'm either 20, 21 weeks out, something like that. Past 5 weeks have absolutely flown by like ridiculously quickly. I think it's because you've dieted quite a bit, haven't you, with Stockton a few years ago?
Yeah, I mean I wouldn't. It's nothing compared to prep.
Yeah,
But
but it's like when you've got those daily like non-negotiables, and it's like shit has to get done by a certain time, otherwise your day's like all fucked, and then you'll walk until midnight trying to get your steps in. So it's like every day, like the routine is just like it doesn't change, and with that, like my days go so quickly because I'm doing so much throughout that day.
what is your
Like,
routine at the moment?
oh mate, so I get up at 4 o'clock and I levitate, and then I do a gratitude diary. No, so alarm goes
Do you
off
have
at
a do you
about.
have an ice bath as well, and then go straight into an infrared sauna, or is that just me?
Well, I'm at the uni house at the minute, so we haven't got
Ah,
the planning permission. But
okay.
I'm on to Leeds Council. I'm like, boys, I just need this infrared sauna around the back. Can we do it?
Yeah, yeah. They'll
Um,
understand.
I'm an online coach, mate. So can you just thanks, bud.
Yeah, cheers.
But no, so alarm goes off at about 5, and loads of people have been like, "Why are you getting up so early?" And the answer to that is when you're utilizing certain drugs that work in a fasted state, you kind of want to put them in a few hours before that first meal. So my first meal is always at 8 o'clock, which means I want to put those things in, like it's just like, even if you're a natural athlete dieting, you're utilizing your himbine, you're going to want that in for an hour or two pre first meal. So they go in, literally then do mobility for maybe like half an hour because I'm ridiculously stiff, like it's
I need
bad.
to get on that. I'm stiffer than an ironing board. Like my mobility, everything. I feel like my joints are just gonna break in half at some point, but I always neglect it. So I need to
Yeah,
get on.
man. I think so. My mobility's always been bad, and I've always had like very tight, like notoriously tight, like quads and hamstrings. Which, you know, when you're younger and you play sport and they're like, oh, do a warm up, and you're just like, oh yeah, and you put about
I don't
4%
know
effort
that,
in.
mate. I don't know that. I was a fat kid. I never played sport, so I can't relate.
Right, so
You have to break this down because I don't understand.
mate, when I always remember, like, I'd be on like the rugby fields or whatever, and they'd be like, right, we need to do these like stretches and these warm ups before we play, and I just put about 4% effort into it because I was like, this is really gay. And now, now like years down the line, I'm here going, oh, this is probably the reason I'm so fucked up.
Yeah.
Um, it's like I get tissue work done twice a week, which
Fucking
is
hell.
holding me together. Yeah. But so I'm tight anyway. And then last year I put 35 kilos of body weight on. From the start of the off season to the end, it's 27 kilos, but halfway through we pulled 8 kilos off and then pushed back up.
Was that
So
your first? Sorry to interrupt you. Was that your like first push up assisted?
yeah.
Mm.
So I go from the start if you want. So I played rugby quite high level, swam, did all that stuff, stopped playing, liked stopped playing, not out of choice. Got battered. So I was like, ah, can't really play anymore. That's great.
What happened?
And then I just walked out of bar, walked out of Rev's bar and got followed out by a load of lads. And just got my head caved in.
You
So
serious?
yeah. So like like skull completely done, nose gone, jaw gone. Woke up, was like, what the fuck?
Hey, what you been
So
doing, mate?
mate, yeah, literally no. So I went out with like some friends, and they were a couple of years older than me. It was like my stepbrother at the time.
Mm.
Went out with him, and then this girl I knew from college was like, "Oh, your brother's been kicked out the bar," and I was like, "Tom's really sound. Like, what you on about?" And I walked
Yeah.
outside. I was like, "What's going on?" He was like, "Oh, some lads kicked off," and then before we knew it, turned around, and I was like, "Oh, great." Just got battered. I was like, "Sound."
How
All right,
you?
so I had nothing to do with this whole event, and I was the only one that got my head kicked in. It's like they Tom pulled the girl away to make sure she was safe and she was all right. And I just turned around and got filled in. So
And then you were like,
that's
you know what? I'm gonna take steroids. I'm gonna get
I
massive,
was
and
like
then my
fucking
revenge arc is gonna.
yeah. So I stopped playing rugby and I was like 85 kilos and pretty fat. And I was like, oh, I quite like bodybuilding. I'm just gonna like do a mock diet. Go
Mm.
because I was going into uni. So from February till September 2019, this is how good my strategy was in my head. If I take 25 carb weight every week, I'll just get lean at some point. So I just did that. I took 25 carb every week for about 20 something weeks. And
And
then
then you had
by
no
the end
confidence.
of it, mate, it was funny. By the end of it, I was doing an hour and a half of Stairmaster a day because I was peeled, but I didn't have the tissue to be peeled.
Well, yeah,
And I
wouldn't have anything fuel in your workouts to keep anything.
not even that, but like all I'd done is performance based sport. So I'd never like if I had any tissue, it was just a byproduct of like performance based sport. Like there was no direct hypertrophy. So I
Mm.
had absolutely no fucking tissue. And I was trying to get like inside out. And when you don't have enough tissue to do it, you can't do it. So I
Mm.
was like, oh, why am I not like lean in these areas? And I was like, I've got no muscle there, but that didn't compute with my chimpanzee brain at the time. I was like, I'll just keep digging, mate. So like by the end of it, I was like, oh yes, it's mental. Got coached by Josh Bridgman going into uni. Was with Josh for a few years. COVID, so like loads of lockdowns. So my plan was get into uni, right, and then push up naturally for a year for our first year. Go assisted in my second year, and then compete at the end of my third year. That didn't fucking happen. COVID happened, so I got fat again. So I just gone to uni peeled. 5 months of like occasionally going out and a bit of food. I was up like 8 kilos in like 5 months. It was a joke. And then COVID happened. I was like, fuck my life. I couldn't train. I had nowhere to train, had no equipment. Was just like in my garden doing like banded workouts, which would just make me
Want to kill
honestly,
yourself every
mate,
single time.
yeah, I was so miserable. I've got videos of me like losing my head. On like I was doing something banded, like the chair would move that I'm using to like anchor. I might try to do a dumbbell row with a cup, a band attached to like a garden chair, and like the leg of the plastic chair snaps, and
Mm.
that's it. I just lose my shit, and I'm stood in my garden like going mental. It was a nightmare. So obviously went back to uni, gyms open again, was fat, so I dieted, and then left. No, so that was like second year we went back. Dieted, just yo-yo dieted for a bit, had awful composition, didn't know what I was doing. Um, this was like nothing to do with like Josh as the coach either. This was like we were going through that phase where it was like gyms had opened, then they'd shut, then they'd open, then they were shut.
Yeah, it does.
And I was like, mate, it was just
Especially
shit.
at
And
uni
then
when you don't have the funds as well, and you're putting all this money into it, and you're like, I can't
what?
warrant
Yeah.
doing that. It makes no sense.
And then as I got into my, as I was going into my third year, that summer, I was like, I sacked Josh. Obviously, I didn't sack him, but I was like, oh, Josh, mate, I'm just gonna quit doing this stuff because I was like, at the time, I had no plans of really doing anything with my physique because I wasn't where I wanted to be, so I wasn't gonna prep. And I was like, I just can't hack this, like, because obviously, as a natural athlete, there's only so much you can do. And I was paying, rightfully so, because he's very in demand, a lot of money for Josh to like put my carbs up, like maybe 25 a week or something like that. And I couldn't justify the money I was spending for the investment I was getting back. Well, sorry, the return I was getting back. So did my own thing for a bit and then met Ali and was like, at this point, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to send it. I'm going to go assisted.
How did you guys actually meet?
So I was a massive fanboy of bodybuilding.
Mm.
And this is like, I always laugh thinking about, because this is only like, maybe 18 months ago where like things started to change for me. So obviously I followed like loved the YouTube scene, so I used to follow Josh and all that, so I knew about Cal. And I used to go and do the like seminars and stuff. I'd just sit there like a little nerd and listen. China was coached by Cal, obviously so was Ali. So I was used to seeing China and Ali on Cal's stories. I was training at Elite and Ali and China used to occasionally come and train there. And I'm a bit of a prick. So if I don't know you, I won't ask you for a spot because I'd rather die under a bar than ask some
I'm the exact
person
same way.
for a spot that might grab it. Because you know, you've all been in that position where you're like, oh, like, don't touch it unless I'm dying. Like, only help me if I physically can't.
Well,
And then they just grab it.
I always find it like I always have to explain to people like how I like to be spot, like especially if I'm like on something where I want it the rep to be as consistent. So I'm like slowly press on it so it's consistent, and then you just see like people like, especially when you go for like, I always find if I'm going for a dumbbell press and you're like struggling on that last one, it's still going up, and you've got that 40-year-old geezer grabbing your elbows and like shafting it like that, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I knew Ali. Obviously, I seen Ali on Cal's story. So again, my chimpanzee brain went, right, he's coached by Cal. He's got to know what he's doing. So I was like, oh, mate, can you spot me? And I was doing like a reverse banded bench or something. And he, after he spotted me, I'd like 200 plates on it. And it was like more or less a flat press. It was a very slight incline. So I think obviously I was still 90 and I was like maybe like 70 something kilos at the time. So he was like, after he just went, why you banded it? Like argumentatively. I thought, I just let off. I was like, well, I'm banding it for these reasons. Because obviously, like, all the people in the gym are like, why are you banding it, mate?
Mm-hmm.
So I gave
Like,
him a
listen, mate,
mouthful.
I've gone to a seminar. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I was like, so we spoke about it. And then he was like, I was just like, he was almost like testing my knowledge, just like curiosity. And we just got talking. I was like, I rate that. And then we just got talking. And then I digged sort of deeper into who he was, did my research on Ali, realized he's pretty damn smart and pretty damn good at this job.
He's scouting it.
Yeah, signed up with Ali. He's probably like one of the biggest like exercise training nerds I've ever met. Like
I've seen some of his seminar stuff on Instagram. I always like it because I'm like you. I love like learning inside out. But the thing is, like, I'm so bad at. I get. I retain information well, but I can't like put it out there in the way they do. And when I can't do it like that, it makes my brain explode.
Yeah, so I'm this mate. When we taught our first seminar, and he was like, "Right, you've got to speak about like this."
Anxiety through the roof.
Oh mate, it's so bad. It's so funny. The last one was really funny at Modified. I was like, we got a classroom for this one, so we're doing gym floor stuff, and then we're in a classroom. There's like cameras everywhere, and there's everyone sat in the chair, and I'm thinking, I've got to fucking, got to say something half decent now. But yeah, no. So I signed up with Ali, and basically just said to him, I was like, right, what position? I know you want me lead, but how lean do you want me? Start anabolics, and he was like, get as lean as you can. So I went, all right. Came back to him a couple of months later, pretty lean. Started taking heads. So that took us into January last year, and then from January till the start of prep, I put on about 27 kilos with an 8 kilo pullback. So 35 kilos of body weight exchanged that year. And I think on top of having shit mobility, that just ruined me because like I can't hack squat anymore because my knees just give way.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's just like I was obviously like strength's relative, and I don't want to sound like I'm sucking myself off, but I was reasonably strong naturally. And then when I took PDs, obviously like it's not like oh you just get fucking really strong, but like my recovery's a lot better, so I could progress a lot quicker. So my strength obviously therefore correlated with that. So it was like,
but your joints couldn't adapt at the rate of
yeah, well,
advancing.
yeah, I think as well it's like movements like a hack squat. Like I don't have particularly good quads or very big legs, but I'm quite strong.
Is that why
Like,
you're doing men's physique?
yeah, pretty much. I've got awful legs. Like I'd love to do bodybuilding or classic, but like it'd just be embarrassing. So I think like I can't. I'm not. I'm a very small human at heart as well. Like I
I
left
thought you.
school at maybe 5'10", 5'11".
Okay.
I left school at like 51 kilos and 16.
51 kilos.
Mate, I'm such a scrawny human.
That's wild.
So like I started prep at like 96 more or less. I think at the heaviest, obviously the heaviest scale weight I got was 97. And I pushed up from 72 that. So it was like with that amount of tissue being put on, whether it's fat or muscle, in 12 months more or less, with the strength progressions as well. Like my bicep, I tore my bicep tendon in October,
Ooh.
pressing 7 plates on the Atlantis press.
How did that feel?
Pretty bad. I've got a video of it. I'll send you a video. Like you just see my face. I shit myself after. It's quite
What's
funny.
it feel like? I've always wondered that. Like, is it like a burning sensation, or is it like does it feel like it's contracted, or?
I felt like you ever snapped an elastic band?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, literally that.
Mm.
Like we'd done a teaching seminar at Evolve for full bore, so I've been stood up talking for like the whole day. Like my nutrition wasn't really good. And then I'd gone to training. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening. I my logbook and saw 7 plates on the Atlantis incline for whatever last week. Oh, I've got to do that today. Just put it on, like 3 reps into it. I was like, fuck, say la vie to that shoulder. And then like my quads and my knees, like I got to like 8, nearly 9 plates and a nautilus hack squat, and like my knees just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, that's wild.
So like I think with like the tissue being put on strength, my joints just haven't. I've not been mindful enough, and I haven't prioritized like joint health throughout any of that phasing, and I've paid the price for it now because I'm now in prep. And like the reason I'm getting tissue work done twice a week is because I'm horrifically tight. Like I'm quite protracted. So on certain angles, it looks like I've got an imbalance of tissue, which I don't. I'm just quite tight. But then I'm struggling in like certain lengthened positions and certain presses, and obviously the use of assistance and the way that we train. Probably not going to lose that much strength until a few weeks out, but all I'm going to do is lose body weight and stability. And when tissue tolerance is outweighed by tension, there's an injury, and at some point, I feel like that's going to come. So I'm like, right, I'm just going to get loads of tissue work done and just fucking hope for the best.
No,
not,
it makes sense.
not,
Like, you don't want to do anything else. Especially, have you found that like has your bicep fully recovered now?
So it was like the bicep tendon, like so that situates sort of under the pec and across the front delt. So I've just gone into that lengthened position, massive just twinge across that sort of like clavicular top line. And then I was like, I couldn't do a press up the next day or anything. Obviously, obviously not being natty, I'm able to use like certain things like peptides or whatever. So the healing process with that was fairly quick, and I was just getting quite regular tissue work done. I'd say it got back to like, I think with volume as well, like my volume for this year, I was at one point I was pressing like 4 times a week. So it's a lot of pressing. Like my whole year has sort of been like that top line development. So I couldn't really take too much time away from pressing. When I did that tendon, it was just finding other presses that didn't piss it off as much or whatever. And then it was probably like a 6-week turnaround before I was like using relatively okay load again. And then I misgrooved the rep on a press and it went again. I was like, fuck. And it's now back to kind of like where it was. I'm fairly confident going into presses again. I've just got like horrific elbow issues now, which is great. So big vibes on that one.
So you're just big broken man, mate.
Yeah, it's quite embarrassing. I feel like for my size, it's just not that.
Nah,
Doesn't
mate, don't
crack.
do that. Don't have that negative mindset. Don't need any of that. Don't. Not bringing those negative vibes today, Pete. All right. No, no speaking down about yourself. All right. Little scrawny lad to where you are now. Big improvements,
Yeah,
man.
mate. It's funny. I've sent I found some photos like one of my first check-ins with Josh, and I was like, who the fuck is that guy?
Mm.
Like I think I was like 60 something kilos, like pretty peeled. And
Yeah.
I'm like it's like 40, like 30, nearly 40 kilos body weight. Like it's mad.
How did you find like I'm not gonna be one of those people who's gonna be like, oh, did you change so much when you started going assisted and get a god complex and all this kind of stuff? But how
Nah,
did
mate, I already
you
had one.
yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? How did you find the initial change from being like a natural lifter to advanced lifters? Because obviously the demographic of my podcast, like I feel like it's a lot of people who are at that kind of lower level and don't really have a big insight into kind of the kind of changes within training and kind of like how you have to adapt kind of through that.
Okay. All right. So I think the the biggest thing I can say, which a lot of people don't understand about anabolics, is it doesn't. Best way to think about anabolics is that it increases capacity to recover. So we all know in regards to like volume, it's the exact same in regards to like volume and training in the gym. Like you can only do what you can recover from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're increasing anabolics and you're putting any anabolics in to start with, like your ability to recover from what you're doing is fantastic. In which case, like you can progress more often. You're going to yield more tissue as a result of that. You're not going to put anabolics in and just grow tissue.
Yeah, I think that's what most
Yeah.
people think. It's like
So
when I spoke to my mum about
a lot
when
of people are like, "Oh, mate, you just put some gear in. Yeah, you just put tissue on. No, mate,
I
you
was
just
I
recover
was
really
literally
fucking
watching a
well."
Josh Bridgman video this morning downstairs, and she was like, "Fuck me, you can tell he's on steroids." And then she goes, "Dirty cheats, cheating." And I was just like, "It's not how it works. It's like I feel like anyone who, and this is like anyone who doesn't have an insight into how it works, they just think like you inject and you just blow up overnight, and there's no work, related to that.
Yeah.
It's just a simple kind of like magic injection. There's so much more into it."
So I think differences in myself are like I'm I think just I don't know. I know some people that have used anabolics and they fucking feel like they just kick a door down and just run
Mm.
for a wall. But like I've never really been hypersensitive to any like drug, regardless of what it is, whether it's like caffeine or anything at all. So like, when I took anabolics, like I didn't notice anything at all. Like I
Mhm.
didn't feel a certain way. I didn't feel anything. I didn't start getting like more like egotistical or like my
Confident.
temper didn't. Yeah, my temper didn't change. My confidence really changed. I was just a bit like, I think it was like about 8 weeks in. I was training. I just like, when you're really dieted and you finally get a carb meal and you train, you just feel like ridiculously full. That was
Mm.
the first thing and only thing I ever felt. I was like, oh shit, like I've never felt like this in the gym before. I was just really full. And then obviously whenever you train after that, it's kind of relatively like the same. But I think from like a personal point of view, like nothing changed in what I did across like my wake up to my bedtime 7 days a week. All I did when I first started anabolics was put a needle in me twice a week. That was the only difference. Like I ate the same food, I trained the same, went to the gym at the same time. I literally just jabbed twice a week and I put a bit more muscle on than I normally would do. Like no, I think when I lost my dissertation. I went for a breakup at the same time as like starting this business with Ali
Mm.
when I was on
'Cause
anabolics.
you had a
And
bit of a like spin with your mental, didn't you?
yeah, I think it's like so it probably happens like twice a year. It's quite funny. To be honest, because everyone's like, "How do you deal with it?" I'm like, "I just burn out and then sort of just carry on." Like, have a
Just
mental
go till
breakdown.
you can't anymore and then deal with it when you have
Yeah.
to.
Everyone's like, oh, what's your mental health like? Kind of like, protocols and whatnot. I'm like, mate, I just get mad depressed twice a year and just carry on.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Sit in the
No,
shower and just play Marvin's Room back to back, bro. That's
oh,
how I deal
mate,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So I I'm quite a busy individual and I spin a lot of plates, and I enjoy the fact I spin a lot of plates. I would never choose to not spin them. Like I'm prepping, I'm finishing my masters, I'm starting my own business, got a social life with the boys, like relationships, stuff like that. Like it's a lot of things to spin at once, and then when you're coaching as well, you're spinning all your clients' plates at the same time because you've got to manage 4 or 5 variables for every single client that might need you every day of the week or whatever. And you'll know as well, like when you're trying to grow your business, like you're so fucking consumed by trying to grow your business and be successful in whatever money you are. And so it's like that sound, and I can do that for a decent amount of time. But when one plate goes, a
All
few
the
go at once.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never had a situation where like one thing's just kind of gone to shit. It's like everything goes. I'm like, fuck.
It's like it all stacks on top of each other, and it's just like
Yeah.
as soon as one thing goes, and like I don't know if you're similar to me in this kind of regard, but like I find that with what you said in relation to like having multiple things at once, I find my mental is normally at its worst when I have nothing going on. So
Oh yeah,
like I
100%.
dwell, if I have time to like dwell on something, I overthink it. I start getting into deep things, and I find that you know if I have X, Y, and Z to concentrate on, I can just kind of push that to the back until I finally have to deal with it. That kind of approach.
Yeah, I'm very big on ignoring and suppressing any emotional issues.
I don't think that's the message we're trying to put out here, Pete.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. You shouldn't do it, but I think that's just how I deal with
Yeah,
things. And like, I'll be sat in like a room that's shut on fire, and someone will be like, "How are you?" I'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm sound," because I just won't notice what's going on. And then at some point, I'm like, "Oh fuck, I'm not okay."
yeah.
It's I'm laughing about it, but no, I'm trying to work on it. So yeah, no. So I had a lot of stress in May, which we decided to end my first push up. So that was about 17 kilos to put on in that 5 months.
Was that just because you couldn't manage like keep pushing food? Or was it just to do
Not
with like
well, so the girl I was seeing at the time, we've been together for years. We She was like she's sick, like no hard feelings there at all. Like she she has a job where she like travel quite a bit,
Mhm.
and she worked corporate hours, and I obviously doing that uni and then like bodybuilding would be free-ish kind of throughout the week, but then on the weekends I'd be going to shows or doing whatever. So we decided like for the both of us, one of us would be settling for the other person. It's not really fair. Go and pursue what we both want to do, whatever. So that ended. That probably hit me a lot harder than I thought it would have.
Mhm.
Shock. And at the same time, like I lost my dissertation and I had like 40 hours to write it. So throughout this time period, like I'd noticed I'd maybe miss meals. I wouldn't miss calories for the day. I'd miss a meal and then I'd just be like slamming a bag of Tang Fast sticks and a protein shake, trying to do work and like account for calories, and shit just started to slide. And it was one of those where it's like I probably could have continued what I was doing, and I'll talk a bit more about this in a minute. But like using anabolics is almost like a fucking plaster for poor nutrition and poor training. Like isn't good, and like having anabolics in there, like they allow you to perform well even when other variables aren't really there. But you need to be fucking like self-aware enough to notice like that's going on. So I was like, right, we'll just cruise for a bit. Did my bloods. My bloods were fucking perfect. So easily could have stayed on from like a physiological health point of view, but like from a stress management and just like pulling back on bodybuilding, shifting the focus very slightly for like a maintenance slash tidy up for a couple of weeks wasn't gonna fucking hurt. So we did that. Then went into my second blast around July, and that concluded in literally as New Year started. And I think from that time period, I went from 80 kilos to like 97 or something. And then again, like bloods were perfect the whole time. Like the only marker I ever have that gets a bit shitty is like my HDL. Well, I've never seen anyone with decent HDL and LDL in the UK. So go figure on that one. In the end of my second blast, so my first blast was just testosterone only. My second blast was, bear in mind, this is my last year as a junior, so the protocol and risk to reward ratio probably was at a slightly elevated pace compared to that of somebody that's got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I've got all the time in the world for competing. However, it's my last year as a junior, so I was like, we're going to make more aggressive decisions for this year than what we would if it was like if I had 2-3 years, because the demand for tissue is slightly higher than what I would if I had 3 years to have anabolic use before my first show, etc. So my second blast was pest, primo, growth, and then at the very end of it, Trent got introduced.
How did you
At
find
the
that?
very end,
Just because
same
I
again.
know there's going to be people listening to this and they'll be like, oh,
Yeah, so I'll get onto this.
friend.
So shock. Ended up in another relationship that ended in December. I chose to end that one. Just because it just wasn't for me anymore. Shit was going on. I was mad busy with uni as well. Business was quite stressful at that time period. Uni was extremely stressful. So it got to the point where food was really bad. Like my routine was really bad. My focus had just like completely gone. And it's like I remember one day I'd had like I think 2 slices of Domino's pizza from like the night before, and then just went and trained and like
Optimal.
put mate, and I put like 65s up on dumbbell press, and I've not done a dumbbell press for a year.
That's
So
mate, just stop. You're making me depressed.
yeah, so in regard to like before what I said about like recognizing that anabolics aren't a plaster, like I was like, yeah, this is bad because like my performance was really good, but like the frame of mind I was in was like pretty horrific, and I don't think that was to do with anything I was taking. I think that was generally just like that was like my second burnout of the year, like stress. Like to be honest, like business took off and it went mental, and I was like, "Fuck, this is really cool." And then from the July, now bear in mind, I just come off like a massive low of my gestation relationship, whatever, to then getting put into like one of the probably highest highs I've ever had, and it was like July till like December was crazy, and every week I'd be at a different show. Clients were applying to work with me, which was fantastic. Social media was like picking up, which was like fantastic. All these people that I looked up to or watched on YouTube or whatever were then like becoming my friends. And I was like, this is mad. Like the people around me, this is phenomenal. Had all the boys that I did the podcast with, like Tom, like Luke, Jack, and all that. I was like, this is, I remember saying like, oh, I'd really like mates like that. And then I had mates like that. And I was like, this is phenomenal. And then I had clients competing at the end of the year, and I was like, fuck, like in the space of a year, I've gone from doing what I was doing to probably living the life that I wanted to live. I was like, wow. And then December hit, and I think I just completely dipped. And then stress was like crazy. And I look back at like that sort of autumn, winter time period, and I was in a constant state of like sleep deprivation, fatigue, and just like fuck knows what. But I just didn't recognize it in the moment. Like my head was completely gone the whole time. And I think I was just like constantly riding dopamine hits. That every single week I'd be doing something with someone or filming something with someone, or it'd be like, oh, I've got a podcast on this night. I love that. And I'd be like buzzing, and I get to that night, and I'd be like, right, cool, what's after it? And I'd be like, oh, Sunday we're going to this gym to train with these people and film for this person. I'd be like, oh, sick. And do you know what I mean? It was like constant little dopamine spikes. And then when that kind of settled towards the back end of November, I was like, oh my God, I'm like 6 feet down shit's creek with no paddle here. Um, and it was like I've spoken to people that were around me at the time, and it was like about like how did I ever change? And mum was like, the only time I've ever seen you be a little bit shorter was when you were utilizing Tren at the end of that off season. However, she's then gone, that was probably the most stressed I've ever seen you. Now, I don't think like having, the PDs I had in place would have helped massively during that time period. But I also don't think they're the root cause of it. So that before you said like how have I changed? Like everyone that's close to me, like all the boys at uni, like mom, people I've been in relationships with have always been like, you're no different. You're like pretty chilled out to the point where you're almost like horizontal. It's just I think it's a massive one where it's like if you are a bit of a cunt and you do take peds, it just exacerbates that cuntiness in you. And it's like I think I'm a pretty chill dude most of the time. So
I think what you said though, like talking about like how, you got to a point where you kind of start relying on peds over, nailing those, basics. I feel like obviously not a load of people, but I think those kind of individuals who kind of have that mindset that, oh, it's the peds causing this. I feel like it's more of a breakdown of you know, those people are living, you know, that small rut you had, that is their day-to-day life, because they're constantly going off of, you know, having shit sleep, having shit nutrition. You know, that's not going to make you feel good, and that's just going to be increased by taking peds on top of that. And
Yeah, I think
I always
there's a lot
find
of
when,
people.
go on, mate, go on.
So, like I say, there's a lot of people that do that. I think like one thing Ali and I preach at these exercise mechanics seminars that we teach and whatnot is like, if you're really inaccurate in your training and you're really shit with your food and your sleep's really shit, but you've got a bit of anabolics in there, that'll probably make up for those three really shitty things. Now, the flip side of that is like, well, if you had really good training, like you were really accurate and you trained really well, and your food was really good, and your sleep was really good, could you use less anabolics and get the same reward? Or could you use the same amount of anabolics and get an even better reward? It makes no sense to me. Like, we all know, all right, okay, like fair enough, there are some genetic freaks out there. Like, I trained with a pro recently and he's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, yeah,
And
mate.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't he's probably not the most accurate person I've ever seen train, but he's probably got the best physique I've ever seen in my life.
mm.
So it's like some people just, it doesn't matter. They'll look at a weight and they'll grow. Us mere fucking mortals, we're not like that. And it's like, I know so many people that train like dog shit, but they're slamming like way more gear than they need to get
Because
quite a
they
shit
use it to
reward out
make
of it.
up for those lost things.
Yeah.
I think
And
when
I
you
think it's
see naturals as well who have been like living that lifestyle for years and then they go enhanced, like Joe Richardson or like Lewis Jones, you see like these people blow up overnight, and then people are like, yeah, but they're running grams and grams and grams. When the reality is, you know, they've just lived that lifestyle for so long, it's like no
yeah.
change, and they've just introduced that.
I think that was like me as well. It's like my natty to enhanced sort of difference is quite mad. And like I said, the only thing I did differently was put a needle in me.
Mm.
And nothing like I was training the exact same way before, but I now had like what, fucking nearly 10 times the capability to recover and progress from like a hormonal point of view. Obviously, I'm going to put tissue on, and I put decent quality tissue on where it needed to go because I trained accurately at the same time. There will get to a point with everybody's career where they might need to quote unquote push drugs, but like you can get away with not a lot for a long time if you manage your variables. But you just get these absolute fucking idiots that are just like, oh, well, I slam a load of this and I train like shit, I'm still gonna grow.
Mm. And you get the deluded people who think they're like Mr. Olympia worthy, and you know, just have no idea. They've like, I think the benefit like of, you know, learning as a natural, you know, there is, you know, having that time, learning how to train accurately, you know, how to eat properly and nailing those basics is, you know, an essential before pushing up. And like, I don't know what your protocol is for, you know, coaching enhanced people, but is that like something you try and kind of push before they consider, or?
So I do coach enhanced people, and I haven't put them on gear, but I've had athletes that are natural that I've been like, I want to go on, and I've gone through that transition with them. The biggest concern for myself is maturity with that individual, because you have to trust that that person is going to take what you're telling them to take and not be tempted to take more. You
See,
know what I
that's
mean?
even going through my head, because like for me as an individual, I would be, you know, especially starting off, I'm not gonna lie, I know fuck all about steroids and like how everything works, but like the idea that you wouldn't trust someone who's, you know, researched all this kind of stuff, and just because you think X, Y, and Z is going to lead to, you know, this end result, but you're ignoring all the potential health risks you put yourself at. Like, how is that? Do you know what I mean? It's
Honestly like, I hate Big Dave down the gym for a start. Oh, Big Dave down the gym told me to do this. Yeah, Big Dave's a dickhead. Spoiler alert. Don't listen to him. But the thing is, like, the problem is like there's a lot of people that just get told things and it sounds great, it sounds fantastic, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll just do that. And it's like what a certain milligram dose might do to yourself might not work with me,
mm,
and that can be based on how quickly you and I, from a genetic standpoint, metabolize certain drugs. I could have a really fast metabolizing rate for certain drugs, and you might have a really slow rate. Which, so our dosage needs to be different. Like we can't both take the same dose and get the same reward out of it. So you got these people that just get generic fucking like dosage that I'll take this and then all that shit. But like I've had lads that are like, right, I want to go on, and I'm like, you can't send me your check-in on time. How can I trust you to do this? And then I've got other lads that are like absolute like robots. Even a few girls that have spoke about enhancement and whatnot. And like I think for me it's a massive maturity point of view because it's a very mad industry for people thinking like more equals more, and obviously like it doesn't. Sometimes like less is more. But a lot of people are like, well, if I'm growing at this rate on this, like, what if I just increase it? And it's like, I'm not withholding these dosages away from you for some weird reason. Like, there's a reason I'm telling you to take what I'm telling you to take. Do you know what I mean? So, like, maturity is a big one for me. Like, are they going to do what I'm telling them to do? And then after that, it's like, obviously, like you have the generic, like, risks to reward ratio conversations and stuff like that. And you need to assess. A lot of people preach out like, oh, you should do a prep naturally before you go assisted or stuff like that. I disagree with that completely.
I was going to say
I
the
think
same thing actually, because well,
I
yes, you go on to your point.
yeah, I disagree with it just because it's like just let people do what they want to do. Like you have no right to judge an individual for wanting to do whatever. And I think I've had people that have just turned around to me and been like, I don't like how slow the progress is naturally. I just want to take some assistance because I want a greater return on I want a greater reward for my return on investment. I'm like, okay, as long as you understand the health complications, the health risks, the financial cost this is going to do and whatnot, then all right, I can't stop you doing it. And if you don't do it with me, you're just going to go and do it with another coach who fuck knows what they're going to do with you. So at least I can guarantee your safety. Well, not your safety, obviously, because some dickhead's going to DM me now and be like, oh, steroids aren't safe. Yeah, no shit, mate, but there's a safe way of doing it. Like, I hate that. Everyone's like, oh, steroids aren't safe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, a safe use protocol still isn't safe. Better than some dickhead Dave down the gym going, oh, just do a gram of this.
I
No,
always
mate.
find it funny when it's like, like because I've talked to like individuals about it, and then it's like, oh, you shouldn't do that. It's not good for your health. But these are the same individuals going out on the weekend, snorting packet, drinking themselves to death, and like smoking constantly. Yeah. And look, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but you're acting like you're on this higher level just because someone's doing that. It's
I literally think like everyone's got. I don't drink. I don't take recreational drugs. I have taken recreational drugs and I have drank in the past. Just don't want to do it, so I don't do it. But I pick my poison. I'm at peace with that. Whatever it'll be will be. If I get health complications in however many years, then okay, I'm gonna get them. But what I'm gonna do is everything I can do to mitigate against them. So
it's the right
that's
approach.
it. And I think
no, go on. Sorry, I'm so bad at interrupt people.
I was gonna say like my biggest pet peeve is people in the industry that are like, oh, you shouldn't do this, but then they do it. It's like, who are you to judge? Like, who is anyone to judge anyone? Like, Johnny, just chill out.
Just need to be transparent in what you're doing, be smart about it, and don't just fucking judge people for doing stuff their ways. I was gonna say, mate, because this is something I've been wondering for a while. When is what's going on with Wancast? Are we when are the boys getting back together? Got a very devious smile on your face there.
Yeah, it's probably not happening. It's probably not happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. Probably not.
What, the boys are broken up? Damn.
Yeah, we haven't. Like we're all pretty busy.
No, I understand it. I understand it. Like everyone's going there, especially with like you prepping, Tom's prepping.
I also think like the direction, if like it doesn't take a fucking genius to work out. Like if you follow us all closely, the dynamic of like the five of us has changed massively, like over the past couple of months. And I just think like this sort of natural progression of people's life, like Tom, Luke, Jack, and I are still very much in bodybuilding and competing and stuff like that. Perrin has gone down a more health functional sort of route, and he's very like he's quite busy academically at the minute. because he loves his degree. You know, fair fucks to him. Like he loves what he does, and I think he wants to do very well in that. And I think he feels he needs to try very hard and put a lot of time into uni to do well in that, which is sound. Like he's going to go do it. That's good. And I just think, like, obviously, like last couple of podcasts, Perrin was missing from them because he was busy with commitments, and then he's got like Ironman training in Africa and stuff coming up. Jack's quite busy. Luke's very busy over at Brightman, so it got hard finding an hour across a week, which I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "How's it hard?" But it's like you got 5 people on 5 different time frames with 5 different lives. It's not easy because it's like some evenings I'd be mad busy, like I've got consults, I've got this shit going on. Jack would be working. He has a job as well as uni. Like Tom might be free for it, and then it was like, oh, Tom and I are just free this evening. No, I can't really do it with the 2 of us, or maybe be like, oh, there's only 3 of us that are free this evening, and we're just like, oh, we'll just wait until there's a 5. So I think a few of us have had conversations about starting it again, but I just don't foresee that happening. And if I think if we did start it again, there'd probably just be a couple of us doing it, and therefore we change the name and it'd be a different podcast. So
fair play, mate.
That is that. It's one of those. I think it's just like shit ends, man. Like also, like I think that we're all very like we wouldn't want to just put something out that's a bit shit for the sake of putting something out. Like it'd be more so like we want a good podcast, and therefore that means time and like thought process needs to go into it. Like, right, we need to plan ahead for guests, and we need to do all this shit, and we just didn't. Just as a collective, just fell off. So yeah.
Okay, all right. And one like final thing. So how many shows are you competing? Is it just the one this year?
So the plan is to do the PCA First Timers 24th September. So that's going to be quite a busy one. I think like Jenkins is in that one. Ethan Metcalf, whichever one, he's doing that as well. So there's a couple of lads in that I know, which is quite fun. And then the week after, I'm gonna do the Two Bros race trick. They're set in stone for now. If I do any more, it will be PCA finals, and I'm only going if I win or come second. I'm not going to go if I place. Everyone's like, why don't you go if you place? Because it's like, well, if I place and there's nothing I can do in regard to improving my physique in 4 weeks, what am I bothering? Like, if I can't beat whoever's won on the day, because realistically, like finals is just like the first call outs that everyone's won the shows over the year. And if you're not in that spot anyway, like I'm not gonna place fucking 4th first timers and then come and win the finals 2 weeks later. So I'd rather not. But if I do go to finals, if I do another show after that, it'll be the NFM UK on like the 22nd of October. For me, this season is just about nailing the prep and seeing how good I am, and then I'll take as much time as I need to come back competitive. Like I'm very obsessive and competitive, and to be honest, like if it wasn't my last year as a junior, I wouldn't be prepping this year. Like I'd want more tissue. I'd want to be better. Obviously time dictates that. So, but like I won't be doing any shows in like November. I know there's like the fucking whole show, the PCA whole, and there's something else, but I won't do this. I've got clients competing in October, and November, and December, so I'm going to be busy, and I don't think there's no point in me like longing out 4 more weeks of a prep for another mediocre placing to maybe the cost of my attention with one of my clients' preps. I'd rather not.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, mate, I'm excited to see it. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. First guest, Pete, everyone. It's been great. Yeah, leave it there and see you next time, guys.